So today's question is, Scott, what was your best technique for your stop smoking clients? Which strategy did you find most helpful? So I've talked about techniques before. So what was my best technique? My best technique, believe it or not, was not using techniques and strategies and things like that. Okay. Realize this: smoking is a symptom, anxiety is a symptom, weight loss is a symptom. So until I will talk to my clients and find out the parameters of their problem, find out what the real root cause is, I didn't know what to do. So I never got locked into it has to be this technique and this strategy. It's got to be timeline. It's got to be this, got to be a regression, got to be this. Because now you're guessing, and so many therapists and coaches get caught in this, like it has to be this strategy and this technique will solve this problem. But that is impossible to generalize everybody and lock everybody into the same type of technique that's going to work for everybody. So if I would use a technique, it's more of a principle, which is this, and this is quite cool. I think you'll enjoy this. We all know that a client's problem exists unconsciously. We know this. And all they're going to say to us when we ask them, what's the problem? What do you want to work on? They're going to give us symptoms. So let's say, for example, I said to my client, okay, what's the problem? What do you want to work on? And they say, well, Scott, I want to quit smoking. If I quickly go get my stop smoking script, which I do not recommend scripts, or my stop smoking techniques, which I do not recommend that either, all I'm going to do is solve the symptom, which is going to be a big waste of time. But realize this. So my client says, okay, I want to quit smoking. I know that smoking is a symptom. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dig into the problem. I'm going to ask what questions, who questions, why questions, when questions. And what I'm looking for are what are called unconscious moments. And I do this through conversations, the very first part of the intervention. And what I'm actually doing is, in a roundabout way, I'm actually forcing my client to go into trance to find that information more in depth and more unconscious information about the problem. So think of what I've done there. I'm actually killing two birds with one stone. So when it came to like therapy, I never split things up. So I see a lot of people say you've got to do the pre-talk, then you do the relaxation technique, then you do the therapy, then you do this. We've never done that. Okay. And I don't recommend that because now you're putting things into like a step-by-step formula. And unfortunately, clients don't follow that way. Clients' problems don't exist in a very logical way. It's all over the place. So back to what I was saying before. So when I'm asking my client about the problem, I'm looking for unconscious moments. I'm looking for what is the unconscious information. And I realized this very quickly that for the first 10 minutes, just as a generalization, 99% of what your client says is absolute garbage. Because how could it not be? Because the problem exists unconscious. And until we ask the right question or a series of good questions for them to be able to retrieve the unconscious information, it means they're just going to give us symptoms and scenarios and examples, which is all conscious. And it gets very tough not to get sucked into that consciousness. So when you're asking your client about the problem and you notice some unconscious moments, like they'll pause, they'll zone out, they might even say, oh, wow, I just thought of this, like a memory gets presented to you. This is more the unconscious stuff, and this is the stuff you want to listen to. So as a matter of fact of asking a client about their problem, they actually have to go into trance, like I said before, to give you the right information. So this become the therapy and the trance at the same time. And this is really the key towards, like people ask about conversation hypnosis, like this is really the master key for conversation hypnosis, is to ask your client about their problem, put them into trance and do the therapy before the actual trance stuff actually happens, like the closing of the eyes, the hypnotic phenomena, if it goes down that way, but that opens up another can of worms talking about relaxation and eye closure and all that sort of stuff. But to keep on track here, by talking about your client's problem, they have to retrieve the information that is unconscious. And the very art or the very fact of them having to retrieve that unconscious information and give it to you consciously, they have to go into trance, come out of trance, go into trance, come out of trance, called a fractionation approach. So before long, by asking about the problem, you're going to stretch the parameters of the problem, becomes malleable. It can't be viewed the same way because we're putting different emotions and thoughts into it. And thus you actually do the therapy before the trance actually begins. But by doing the therapy, you're increasing the level of the trance. And before long, after maybe 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes, your client is so tranced out, whether their eyes are closed or not, doesn't really matter, that they actually start retrieving resources. They actually start snapping in and out of trance going, oh my God, this is the real problem. This is how I can fix it. So you're actually doing the entire therapy, trance, intervention, asking about the problem all in one move, instead of splitting things up like It has to be the relaxation, or you have to, do the priming, then the relaxation. Then you've got to do the suggestibility test. You've got to know how deep your clients are. All of that stuff is irrelevant when it comes to actually real therapy and helping your clients. So I actually forgot what your question was. What's the best technique? That's what I do, regardless whether it was stop smoking, whatever it is. And a lot of people say, well, Scott, you just work with smokers. And my response to that is, no, I didn't. I never helped anyone quit smoking. I never helped anyone with their problem, because that problem is a symptom. So when I dug deep into the stop smoking thing, I was dealing with things like rape, trauma, alcoholism, abuse, anything you guys can think of is all the underlayers or the unconscious stuff that's going on that caused the smoking to happen. So my marketing was about stop smoking to get them in the chair, but you better believe I've pretty much solved every problem you can think of, and it all starts in the same place. So that was my favorite technique. I was never drawn to the, I think a lot of people get caught in the different categories of this. It's like, everybody's always asking, what's the best induction? What's the best way to deepen your client? What's the best way to do hypnosis? Instead of, what's the best therapy? What's the best breakthrough? How can I make sure my clients' results last longer than everybody else's and basically for life? That's what I concentrated on. So whether you call it trance or hypnosis, the only thing that really mattered to me was the breakthrough. How I got there was realizing that the stop smoking or the PTSD, the anxiety, whatever my client first says to me is pure consciousness. I didn't go into a session thinking that all problems exist because of this root cause. A lot of people talk about that. That's impossible to know. That's just a big conclusion. I also didn't get locked into it has to be a certain technique, because again, we are now categorizing everybody to fit one technique, and it doesn't work like that. So it's about being more instinctual, and it's also about being more flexible as a therapist or a coach. And basically, you won't know what to say or what to do with your client until they actually give you what is known as like the root cause problem. So that would be my favorite technique. Hopefully that answered your question, but yeah, that's what I always use regardless of the client's problem.